Welcome! Today we're going to be looking at making molas, similar to the people known as the Cuna in Panama make. It's a layered fabric embroidery piece. We're going to be simplifying this for the elementary level and doing it with paper and some basic stitches in our Fiber Arts Center. You're going to need a set of colored papers, a rough draft paper, something to write with, some scissors, a black background, and the glue of your choice to be gluing these down. The first thing we're going to want to do is pick out our symbol for our mola. That's going to be the main character or main feature for that. You're going to want to sketch it out on your rough draft paper. I am going to be doing the symbol of a peace dove. So I'm just going to look for the basic shapes in this dove. It's not going to be super fancy. I am not going to add a lot of details yet. That's going to come in later on, but I'm going to look at that general outlined shape for my bird as a dove. And then what I'm going to want to do is cut this out and start transferring it to the colors that I'm looking for to begin my mola. Now when I trace this first one, it's going to be the smallest one that I'm doing. So this is going to be the color that shows most prominently on my picture. Since I'm doing a peaceful dove, I'm going to choose a calming color such as blue to trace around and cut it out for my topmost layer. Now I want to pick out the next color layer that's going to go behind this one. And I think I want something a little bit brighter to help it stand out. So I'm going to do a yellow for this one. I'm going to go over to the corner so I can save some of this paper for some other parts that I might be working on in a little bit. But I want to add a little bit of a buffer this time because I want the stitching to show around as if it was another layer of fabric. So when I trace this time, I'm going to trace outside of my actual bird. I'm not touching the edge. I'm going out and around that edge, trying to leave the same distance between here and here as here and here, all the way around. You might have to turn your paper a little bit to make this work. Just make sure you're holding your initial shape in place so that you don't accidentally get it off center. And you'll notice it starts losing some of its definition. It's not as well defined as a bird. Still looks like one, but it's a little bit bigger. And then we're going to cut this one out. So I checked to make sure that this one was going to fit nicely inside of there. And now I need one more layer for my mola that's going to go all the way in the back. I think I'm going to use pink for that layer. And I'm not going to trace my original bird, remember, because he goes inside that one. So I want to trace the one I just cut out, but not the same size. Again, I want to be outside those lines to give it even more of a buffer. After I have my 3 layers cut out in 3 separate colors, then I'm going to start gluing them down onto my black background. That helps it to really stand off the page and make a difference. You can look and see if there's another background color you might prefer, but we want these to really show up and be something special and unique. So make sure you're picking a color that doesn't let them blend in. You can use whatever kind of glue you're comfortable with for this project. If you're using a glue stick, make sure you have a nice new one. I find that the older ones tend to dry out too quickly and then your papers just pop off the page when you go to hang them up or take them home. My favorite are these little glue bottles that have the brushes on them, and you can spread that glue right up to the edge where you need it to stick so these don't pop off the paper at all. Just like that. I'm going to turn it over and I'm going to place this one in the middle. You might choose to place yours on the side or someplace else. I like mine sort of centered like this. You notice I didn't paint the inside of the bird, I just did around the edges where I needed to glue it down. And then I'm going to check and make sure this is my next layer, so I'm going to turn it over. You want to make sure you are putting the glue on the correct side. I've seen a few people sometimes that aren't paying attention and they just pick up the next piece. They start painting the glue on and then they realize, uh-oh, that was not the right side of the paper. And now they have glue all over the front. We're trying to avoid that, so always double check to make sure you're on the correct side of your paper to spread the glue around. It'll be opposite of the one that's already glued down, right? It's the opposite, facing the opposite direction of the one I have glued down right now. All right, out to those edges. I'm going to turn it over and center it as much as I can. And then I'm going to push down all the way from the center out Try and get rid of any of those bumps and wavy areas where it's wet. I'm putting my hands flat on there when I pull it out and away. And one more layer. So for the next part of this project, we want to start adding some of those geometric shapes. The animal or the symbol itself tends to be organic, meaning from nature, or it doesn't have a defined shape. We could say that this is dove shape, but that's not a circle or a square or a rectangle, right? It's a combination of all those things. So we would call this a geometric shape, or sorry, an organic shape. Now we want to do our geometric shapes out here. So triangles, rectangles, circles, squares, diamonds, stars, anything that you might see listed in your geometry class on one of your shapes posters in there. And again, we're going to layer these similarly. Please remember when we're layering that these materials in a real mola would always be layered in this order. Now, does that mean you have to show all three? It does not. And could you add another one underneath all of these we haven't revealed yet in our dove? You could do that. So you would start with the base of a new color and then do pink and then yellow and then blue. Or you could simply skip yellow and then blue, or just pink and yellow. As long as they're staying in a similar pattern to this one, and nothing shows up on top. After you've glued on all of your layers and your decorations and designs, go ahead and put this on the drying rack, and when we come back for part 2, we'll look at how to do the stitching around it to make it pop up and look even more realistic.